somewhere on this planet, a very long time ago, a mother gave birth to a child. She was not human. Her child was. That is the story we tell ourselves. A first human, a first breath, a line crossed. It is a clean story, and it is completely wrong, because the truth is stranger. There was no first human. There was no morning when our species opened its eyes for the first time. What there was instead is a slow, blurred, 7-million-year fade. And the harder we look for the moment it happened, the more the moment disappears. So let's look anyway. Here is the difficulty. Every generation of every species gives birth to something almost exactly like itself. A parent and a child are never different species. They cannot be. Change does not arrive in a single birth. It accumulates, drop by drop, across 10,000 generations, until you compare the beginning to the end and realize you are looking at two different creatures. Imagine standing in a line. You hold your mother's hand. She holds hers. Keep going. One hand at a time, back through the centuries. Walk that line for about 200 miles, and something quiet has happened. The individual holding your hand is no longer human. And yet, at no single point in that chain did a mother and child belong to different species. This is why paleoanthropologists argue, not because the evidence is thin, though it is, but because the question itself contains a false assumption. We are asking nature to draw a line it never drew. What we can do instead is follow the trail. And the trail begins with a very simple, very strange decision: to stand up. Around 7 million years ago, in what is now Chad, something walked that we barely understand. We call it Sahelanthropus chadensis. We have a skull, crushed and warped by time, and an argument that has not ended in 20 years. Was it walking upright? Or was it an ape that simply resembled one? The forests of Africa were thinning, grasslands were opening, and in that changing world, some of our ancestors began doing something almost no other mammal does, moving through the world on two legs, hands empty and free. It cost them. Standing upright is slower than running on 4 limbs. It narrows the birth canal, making childbirth dangerous in a way it is for almost no other animal. It puts the entire weight of a body onto a spine that was never designed for it, which is why your back hurts and why it will keep hurting for the rest of your life. Every human alive is paying a debt taken out 7 million years ago. But it bought something worth more: free hands. 3.2 million years ago, in Ethiopia, a small female of the species Australopithecus afarensis died near a river. Her remains were found in 1974, and the team named her Lucy. She stood about 3.5 feet tall. Her brain was roughly the size of a chimpanzee's, and she walked, upright, deliberately, on legs unmistakably built for it. Lucy was not human, but she was standing in the doorway. Around 2.5 million years ago, those free hands did something new. They picked up a stone, and they struck it against another stone, and they did it not by accident, but with intention, turning the core, choosing the angle, working the edge until it could cut through hide that fingernails and teeth could not. We named the creature that did this Homo habilis, handyman. It is the first member of our own genus. The first thing we were willing to call, however cautiously, Homo. That naming was not a discovery. It was a decision, and a contested one. Habilis had a brain around 600 cubic centimeters, larger than Lucy's, smaller than half of yours. It kept long, tree-climbing arms. Some researchers argue it does not belong in our genus at all, that we placed it there because it made a tidy story. But something real did change. A stone tool is a thought made solid. To strike a flake from a core, you must see the finished edge inside the rock before it exists. Hold a future in your mind and work backward toward it. That is not instinct. That is imagination, and it leaves fossils. And once a creature can cut, it can eat meat. Meat is dense fuel. Fuel builds brains. Brains build better tools. The loop had started, and it would not stop. Then, around 1.9 million years ago, everything accelerates. Homo erectus is the moment the silhouette becomes familiar. Long legs, short arms. A body built not for climbing, but for walking. And walking, and walking. Stand one in a crowd today, dressed and at a distance, and your eye might not stop on it. Erectus was the first of us to leave, not as an expedition, but as a slow spill generation after generation, out of Africa and across Asia, reaching Georgia, Java, China. Before Erectus, our story is an African story. After Erectus, it is a world story. And somewhere in this stretch of time, our ancestors did the thing that changed everything. They learned to control fire. Fire is not just warmth. Fire is cooking. And cooking is external digestion. It breaks down food before it enters the body, releasing energy that raw food locks away. Our guts shrank. The energy saved was spent on the most expensive organ we own. Your brain is 2% of your weight and burns 20% of your calories. It is a luxury, and fire is what paid for it. Fire also did something less obvious. It made the night survivable. And for the first time, creatures like us sat in a circle, in the dark, awake, facing each other, with nothing to do but make sounds at one another. We do not know when language began, but we know where the fire was. Homo erectus lasted, by the most generous estimates, well over 1 million years. Our own species has managed 300,000. By the only measure that matters, endurance, Erectus was more successful than we have any right to claim to be. Here is the part that unsettles people. For almost all of the last 2 million years, being human was not a singular condition. It was a crowd. Around 300,000 years ago, in a cave at Jebel Irhoud in Morocco, the oldest remains we currently call Homo sapiens were laid down, pushing our origin far earlier and far further across Africa than anyone expected. But we shared that world. Homo neanderthalensis held Europe and Western Asia. Heavier than us, larger-brained on average, burying their dead and making pigment. In Siberia, the Denisovans, known first from a single finger bone and a strand of DNA. On the island of Flores, Homo floresiensis, barely 3.5 feet tall. In the Philippines, Homo luzonensis. In South Africa, Homo naledi, small-brained and deep underground. At certain moments, at least 9 distinct human species walked this planet at the same time. And they met. We know they met because the meeting is written inside you. If your ancestry lies outside sub-Saharan Africa, roughly 1 to 2% of your genome came from Neanderthals. Some populations carry Denisovan DNA as well, including a gene variant that helps people in Tibet breathe thin mountain air, inherited from a species that vanished tens of thousands of years ago. They are not entirely gone. They are diluted into us. Then, one by one, they stopped. Flores, Luzon, Denisova, and around 40,000 years ago, the last Neanderthals, in caves at the far western edge of Europe, at the end of the land, went quiet. We do not fully know why. Climate, competition, absorption, chance, or all of them tangled together. What we know is the outcome. A planet that had held many kinds of human for 2 million years was left holding exactly one. That is not a triumph. It is an anomaly. For almost our entire history, we had company. Other minds, other hands, other ways of being human. We are what happens when a crowded family tree burns down to a single branch, and that branch mistakes itself for the whole tree. So, what was the first human? There wasn't one. There was a mother in Chad who stood a little straighter, a small woman in Ethiopia who walked to a river and did not come back, a pair of hands that saw an edge inside a stone, a circle of faces around the first fire, staying awake past dark. Not a moment, a becoming. And it is still going. This is H.U.B, Humanity's Untold Beginnings. We are going to walk this whole road, from the first fire to the world outside your window. Next time, the night the fire was lit and what it did to the human mind. Stay with us.